every president that had a boat during their presidency. One U.S. president secretly underwent cancer surgery on a yacht to prevent mass panic. Another hosted top-secret nuclear arms negotiations while sailing. And one even turned his boat into a personal casino. It's no secret that U.S. presidents love their yachts. So, uncover the wildest presidential yacht stories you won't believe actually happened. Number 20. Donald Trump. What if I told you Trump once owned a Bond villain's yacht? In 1988, Donald Trump bought a 282-foot super yacht once owned by a Saudi billionaire for $29 million. Originally called Nabila, this yacht was so luxurious it even appeared in James Bond's Never Say Never Again. Trump renamed it Trump Princess, upgrading it with opulent gold-trimmed interiors, a helipad, a cinema, and marble bathtubs. He called it the ultimate toy. But just 3 years later, financial troubles forced him to sell it to Prince Al-Walid bin Talal. The yacht is now Kingdom 5 KR, cruising the seas under Saudi royalty. Number 19. Barack Obama. What do Obama, Oprah, and Bruce Springsteen have in common? They all vacation on a billionaire's super yacht. After leaving office, Obama didn't just relax, he did it in style. He was often spotted on the 453-foot luxury yacht Rising Sun, owned by media mogul David Geffen. This isn't just any yacht. It has a basketball court, a private cinema, and even a wine cellar. In 2017, Obama was seen on board with Oprah, Tom Hanks, and Bruce Springsteen sailing the South Pacific. Talk about retirement goals. From paddleboarding in Hawaii to fly fishing in Yellowstone, Obama's love for the water is clear. But who wouldn't love sailing on a $590 million floating mansion? Number 18. George W. Bush. Did you know the Bush family had a secret boating tradition? George W. Bush may not have owned a yacht, but he shared a love for boating with his father, George H.W. Bush. Their family boat, Fidelity V, was more than just a vessel. It was a piece of Bush family history. Docked at their Kennebunkport, Maine estate, it was the scene of many father-son fishing trips, deep conversations, and presidential retreats. Bush wasn't flashy about his love for the water, but he found peace in the quiet waves. Can you imagine the conversations that happened on that boat? Number 17. George H.W. Bush. What if I told you one president loved speedboats? Unlike other presidents who relaxed on yachts, George H.W. Bush craved speed. He owned multiple boats, all named Fidelity, and loved high-speed fishing boats. His favorite, Fidelity V, a 38-foot fountain-powered boat that could fly across the water. In 2024, it was auctioned off, marking the end of a Bush family era. But Bush's love for boating ran deeper. He was even inducted into the International Game Fish Association's Fishing Hall of Fame. Imagine being a world leader and a fishing legend. One moment, he was making nuclear arm deals. The next, fighting marlins off the coast. Number 16. Jimmy Carter. Would you sell the presidential yacht to save money? In 1977, Jimmy Carter did something no other president dared to do. He got rid of the USS Sequoia, the last official presidential yacht. Why? Because it cost $250,000 a year to maintain. Carter, known for his no-frills lifestyle, saw it as a symbol of unnecessary government excess. The yacht had been used for secret nuclear talks, floating poker games, and even presidential birthday parties. But Carter, he saw it as a waste. He later said, "Despite its distinguished career, I feel that the presidential yacht Sequoia is no longer needed." Number 15. Richard Nixon. Would you believe Nixon's biggest decision happened at sea? Richard Nixon loved the USS Sequoia. He took over 100 trips on this presidential yacht, using it as a private escape from Washington's chaos. But this wasn't just a retreat, this was a floating war room. In 1973, he hosted Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev on board, sharing drinks and discussing nuclear arms control. Their talks paved the way for the historic SALT I agreement. But here's a fact. As Watergate unraveled, Nixon used Sequoia as his safe haven. In August 1974, he gathered his family aboard and made the decision to resign. Number 14. Lyndon B. Johnson. What if your office had a built-in movie theater on water? Lyndon B. Johnson turned the USS Sequoia into his own floating lounge. First, he removed FDR's wheelchair elevator and replaced it with a liquor bar. He made sure drinks were always within reach. Then, he took it even further. He installed a movie projector and transformed the main deck into an open-air cinema. But these weren't just for fun. LBJ invited senators, diplomats, and powerful figures to discuss major policies over drinks and late-night movies. Some of the most important conversations about Vietnam, civil rights, and social reforms took place right here. Number 13. John F. Kennedy. What if I told you JFK ran the country from a boat? John F. Kennedy wasn't just a president, he was a sailor at heart. He grew up racing boats and used two personal yachts as president, the Honey Fitz a 93-foot luxurious vessel named after his grandfather, and Manitou, a 62-foot sailing yacht nicknamed the Floating White House. JFK often entertained world leaders and Hollywood stars aboard his yachts. He even held high-stakes political meetings while sailing, but his most famous trip, his last birthday, was celebrated aboard the USS Sequoia. Just months later, the world would mourn his tragic loss. Number 12. Dwight D. Eisenhower. What if a president had yachts but barely used them? Eisenhower had access to both the USS Sequoia and the Honey Fitz, but he rarely set foot on them. Unlike other presidents who thrived on the water, Ike was a land guy. Instead of sailing, he preferred Camp David, golf courses, and cross-country road trips. When he did use the yachts, it was for formal diplomatic events rather than personal relaxation. Imagine having a presidential yacht at your disposal and barely using it. Number 11. Harry S. Truman. Imagine making world-changing decisions over a poker game at sea. Harry S. Truman didn't just use the USS Sequoia and USS Williamsburg for business, he used them for poker. Known for his love of cards, Truman hosted legendary poker nights on board, where high-stake hands were played with top White House officials and close allies. But these weren't just casual games. Political alliances were formed, policies were debated, and major decisions were made, all over a deck of cards and a stiff drink. Number 10. Franklin D. Roosevelt. How would you react if I told you a secret yacht meeting helped win World War II? Franklin D. Roosevelt's USS Potomac wasn't just a boat, it was a battlefield for diplomacy. In August 1941, FDR staged a fake fishing trip to hide his real mission, a top-secret meeting with Winston Churchill. On board, they drafted the Atlantic Charter, a key document that later shaped the United Nations. But this yacht was built for more than politics. It had a secret elevator designed for Roosevelt's mobility needs due to polio. A war leader hiding secrets on a yacht? That's next-level strategy. Number 9. Herbert Hoover. Imagine putting a presidential yacht on your holiday card. Herbert Hoover was the first president to use the USS Sequoia, a yacht that would later serve 8 presidents. But he did something no one else did. He featured it on his 1932 Christmas card. For Hoover, the Sequoia was more than a pleasure craft. It was a place where he could escape the pressures of the Great Depression, fish in solitude, and even strategize economic policies. A president battling financial collapse while relaxing on a yacht? That's some contrast. Hoover may not have saved the economy, but he sure had a one-of-a-kind holiday card. Number 8. Calvin Coolidge. Would you put a priest on a boat just for Sunday service? Calvin Coolidge loved the USS Mayflower so much that he stationed a Navy chaplain on board, just so he could hold church services at sea. This yacht, once a warship turned presidential yacht, became Coolidge's floating retreat. But things weren't always peaceful. Critics called the Mayflower an unnecessary luxury, especially during economic hardship. Eventually, the ship was decommissioned by Herbert Hoover in 1929. Number 7. Warren G. Harding. Have you ever heard of a president being held at gunpoint during a boat trip? Before taking office, Warren G. Harding nearly had his boat trip cut short by a guy with a rifle. Harding was a president-elect when he tried to land a boat on Florida's Pelican Island. But there was one problem. The island's bird warden, sworn to protect its wildlife, wasn't having it. The warden raised his rifle and blocked Harding from coming ashore. The future president was forced to turn back. Imagine the headlines if a US president-elect was arrested for trespassing on a bird sanctuary. Number 6. Woodrow Wilson. Can you imagine a president used a yacht for romance? Woodrow Wilson fell in love on a boat. After losing his first wife, Wilson met Edith Bowling Galt and courted her aboard the USS Mayflower. Their romance blossomed at sea, and soon after, they were married. But Edith's role in Wilson's presidency didn't end there. After Wilson suffered a stroke, she essentially ran the country behind the scenes. Some historians call it the first female presidency, a yacht romance that led to a secret White House takeover. Number 5. Theodore Roosevelt. What if I told you a yacht helped end a war? In 1905, Theodore Roosevelt turned the USS Mayflower into a floating peace summit. 2 nations, Russia and Japan, were locked in a brutal war. Roosevelt invited their diplomats aboard this luxurious yacht to negotiate peace. The result? The Treaty of Portsmouth, which ended the Russo-Japanese War and earned Roosevelt the Nobel Peace Prize, the first US president to receive one. But Roosevelt wasn't just about diplomacy. He expanded the US Navy and built the Great White Fleet, a powerhouse of naval force. Number 4. Grover Cleveland. Can you imagine what would happen if a president had cancer but did not tell anyone? In 1893, Grover Cleveland discovered a tumor in his mouth. But with the country in a financial panic, he feared public knowledge of his illness would crash the economy. So, he boarded the yacht Juanita under the excuse of a fishing trip. but instead, he underwent a secret surgery at sea. 6 surgeons carefully removed the tumor while the boat sailed off Long Island. The operation was so well executed that Cleveland's signature mustache remained intact, and the public never knew until years later. Number 3. Ulysses S. Grant. What if a former president set sail for 2 years? After leaving office in 1877, Ulysses S. Grant didn't just retire, he took a world tour by boat. For over 2 years, he and his wife traveled to 26 countries, meeting kings, queens, and emperors. Grant was received like royalty, from a banquet in Japan with the emperor to a private meeting with Queen Victoria. He even helped smooth US relations with China and Italy. Some say he was testing the waters for a third presidential run. Imagine hopping from one world leader's palace to another, all by ship. Number 2. Abraham Lincoln. Did you know Abraham Lincoln was an inventor? Lincoln is the only US president to ever hold a patent. In 1849, he designed a device to help boats navigate shallow waters. It used inflatable bellows to lift their boat over sandbars. A genius idea, but it was never built. During the Civil War, Lincoln also used boats as mobile war rooms. His most famous, the River Queen, where he met with top generals to plan the final Union victories. A president so fascinated by boats that he patented an invention for them and used them to win the Civil War? Lincoln, investor, strategist, and war leader. What couldn't he do? Number 1. George Washington. What if a boat trip changed the course of history? George Washington didn't just use a boat. He made one of the most legendary crossings in military history. On Christmas night, 1776, he led 2,400 soldiers across icy Delaware River in a surprise attack against the British. The bold nighttime maneuver resulted in a stunning victory at Trenton, turning the tide of the Revolutionary War. Without that crossing, America might not even exist today. Washington was the first US president to have a boat, but he used it not for leisure, not for diplomacy, but for war. Which presidential boat story shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more incredible history. And don't stop now. Watch this next video for even more amazing stories.